Okay, so we're live and we are recording. So, welcome to the first episode of our new radio show called
Hello.
What's for Lunch.
What's for lunch, guys? How are you doing? I'm in Limerick at the moment. Where are you, Eileen? Tell everybody where you are.
Unfortunately, Brendan, I'm not in Limerick. I am in sunny Spain. Hence, you'll see if you're watching this on video, if you're watching on the playback, you'll see the glare maybe across my face. I'm trying to hide a little bit of the light coming in because it is so sunny at the moment and it has been so hot over here.
You're
It's
just
been up
making us
to
all,
35.
you're just trying to make us all jealous with your trip abroad.
Just a
Yeah,
bit, just a
it's
touch. Yeah, no, it's
overcast,
great.
overcast but warm here, but nice. Tell me something before we get into the detail. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
For breakfast so far, I actually made little homemade pancakes for myself, but they were just ones with simple egg and green banana, frozen and then defrosted with a little bit of flax and a little bit of chia seed, and they were delicious, absolutely
Okay, no,
delicious.
I'm going to push
Yeah.
back on the green banana already. I mean, green banana.
Green
Um,
banana for the gut bacteria, Brendan. Yeah,
oh, you've got the
absolutely. I suppose though, Brendan, before we even get into the ins and outs of the green bananas, we better introduce ourselves and let
yeah.
people know who we are. So, do you want to let people know exactly who you are and what you do?
So I'm Brendan O'Brien. I'm I'm living in Kildimo at the moment. I'm a nutritional therapist. I'm a dad. I got three kids. Got a few dogs. I What I do for work is I help couples. I help women and I help couples in general, but women mostly with their infertility struggles. So I use a nutrition program to help women, I guess, overcome infertility. Um, and what else do I do? I
You're
outside of
an author now as well, I believe, Brendan.
Oh, I'm an author. I'm an author. As of last year, I wrote a book about getting pregnant when the body says no. That's something we could talk about. That was a work of, I don't know what you'd call that. It was a labor of love. In a
Hmm.
sense, it turned into something much bigger than it was. But yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's funny to say it. I'm an author. I never, excuse me, I never thought of myself as an author for years. All of a sudden, it's like people say, "Yeah, you're an author," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I am." I have to keep reminding myself. But yeah, that's the thing. Um, Outside of work, what do I do? I I've taken up hiking lately, and it's become my passion. I do group hikes with friends of mine and my wife, and we take as many as we can off on hikes. We go around the world, not the world. We're hoping to go around the world. We go around the country. So like tomorrow we're doing Mount Brandon, and that's become something that I really look forward to. And it's part of a bigger thing. Maybe we'll get into it over time. It's part of an evolution of my own kind of what would you call it? My own personal life, where I'm kind of looking for different challenges at my age. So like I'm 55, and I'm like looking for different challenges. So I'm kind of building up towards doing the Camino in Portugal, and I just said I want to do more and more of these hikes. But it's become a thing. It's a cool thing.
That's
That's what I
fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Would you believe I've always wanted to do the Camino? And I know I'm out here in Spain at the moment, but I'm actually on a recuperating kind of sojourn, shall we say, out here in the
Mm.
southeast of Spain. Like that. I'm actually Eileen Burke. I'm from Drogheda. So you're probably wondering what has me on Limerick City Community Radio. But I have many, many old friends from Limerick. I spent some time in college down there briefly, about 30 plus years ago, shall we say. And our very own lovely Our Girl Friday, Miss Andrea McMahon, or Mrs., but Miss Andrea McMahon is one of my close friends from all the way back then. I actually am. I'm both a Meath woman and a Clare woman at heart. My mum was from Clare, from Ennistymon in County Clare. So I love the West, absolutely love it west of the Shannon. And Limerick has a special place in my heart as well. So just like Brendan, I'm a nutritional therapist as well. And I work with a lot of females of all various ages from puberty right through up to menopause, including some fertility clients as well, not necessarily to the same level as Brendan as yet, because I am a few years behind him. And that's not just to point out, Brendan, that I'm younger than you or anything else like that, but just don't necessarily have the same years of
I won't take it as a
experience.
dig. That's fine.
Not at all. But mind you, there is a little bit of something in common because we have a birthday day apart, just literally one day apart. But I shall be 52 this year, so yeah, just a little bit of time between us.
Mm,
But both of us have vast experience, I suppose, with a lot of female health, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I also work in the corporate space, so I go into some of the county councils, credit unions, various other private corporates as well. And I do a lot of talks on whether it's nutrition, stress management, sleep. It can be as detailed as anyone likes. So we get very, very much in depth as well. So it's my passion to speak, especially to groups. So that's why I suppose I jumped at the opportunity to jump on radio and to help the community in Limerick.
mm,
So yeah, that's me.
brilliant. That's great stuff. So it's actually fantastic to be part of the Limerick City Community Radio. I think both of us are very sort of community minded. I mean, just as another little bit of background, I serve in a voluntary role as a director of the Nutrition Therapists of Ireland, and Eileen formerly had that role. And that's a kind of a community thing. It's like we're supporting our community, but we're very much, I think both of us are minded in that direction for, serving a community. I just kind of love the idea of it. I love the idea of a kind of a local community and helping people. And just to build on that, like what we're going to hope to do over time with this program, this slot here on Limerick Community Radio, is just unpick or at least pick apart various different health problems that people are having, and hopefully we'll hear back from people in the community that are having their own problems and they're having their own challenges. They can be serious, they can be mild, they can be all types, and we're happy to sort of put our what we would call our nutrition therapist's hat on and help you think through those problems. And we're going to be bringing some topics related to health from all different angles of health, all different kinds of health conditions. We're going to put our nutrition therapist hat on and sort of show you how we think through those problems so that you can have a different angle on it. I mean, I suppose what I mean by wearing our hat is the the health space is dominated by the medical and the medical model, if you like, and GPs and doctors. So that's a well served sort of segment, and we're not. And what we kind of do is we have a different angle on that. We have a different approach to it. So we have a different thinking towards health, and we kind of have a more holistic approach to it. It's our entire field is basically sort of a complementary approach to healthcare. And so what we find often,
And sometimes, Brendan, that can have a bad connotation in itself, but it literally sits beside that kind of medical model that you're talking about. And it does complement it so well
Mm,
in that it's more like a therapeutic partnership than that any individual would move into, because it's not just about working with one practitioner, it's working with many that can give them like a whole range of various therapies that they can use to help enhance their health or to unpick, as you say, whether it's chronic illness or something else like that.
yeah, yeah, well said. So that's what we're going to be hoping to share with you, a sort of a view on how our sort of science-backed approach to holistic health using the core of nutrition, but not just nutrition. This is the thing. It takes more than nutrition to be healthy, as you all know, and there's a number of different sides to it. You could loosely call it nutrition and lifestyle, because your lifestyle is such a huge role in it. But I think what we would both be very passionate about sharing with the listeners is and I'm not going to pull any punches when I say this, but the profound changes that we have witnessed in some people that we've seen over the years and we've worked with, and even in ourselves. It's it's um it can be quite sort of eye-opening and even moving to hear some of the stories of people that have really embraced the concept of taking their own health into their own hands, taking responsibility, and then taking guidance from somebody in tandem with a medical sort of help. If they're getting medical help from their doctor for whatever, they don't necessarily have to be, but if they are in tandem with that, it's incredible sometimes to see the power of it. And we're going to be unpacking that. And I think you'll agree with me when I say, Eileen, one of the things we can also talk about is when it doesn't work, and it doesn't always work,
Mhm.
and there's lots of reasons for why people go on a health journey and years later they're still on the health journey and they haven't got where they want to get. That's something we deal with a lot with people too, and we're going to give our thoughts on that. So it's I guess we're trying to cast the net wider and show some people the possibilities of what's out there. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. It's about encouraging, I suppose. We're just going to
mm,
encourage people, gentle encouragement, just to make, even if it's one small change, and that can sometimes push the needle quite, substantially for an individual, especially if they're just so used over years and years of doing the same thing, but ending up with the same results as well. So this is more about a mindset shift as much as anything, to get people thinking that, you know what, it is possible to whether it's just make small swaps or small tweaks to their daily, food intake, or to add in little bits of exercise, to really dial in their sleep, those kinds of things. Now, not everything is possible for all people because of different circumstances, and it will be lifestyle dependent and life stage in terms of whether somebody's dealing with, if they're in the so-called sandwich generation, which Brendan, both you and I really understand very, very well, especially if caring for elderly parents as well as younger children. We've both experienced that, and we've both lost a parent to dementia and the, what comes with that. So we do understand a lot of these, and this is what I think gives us a unique kind of take on things as well. That we're not just talking the talk, but we're also walking the walk along with people, and that we do have that empathetic approach because we do get it.
mm,
We're right there in the midst of it with somebody. We really learn about somebody's full story in order to get to know them. We have very deep intake forms and everything else, and we work one to one with people. We want to know all the detail. We don't just have a limited 10-minute slot or less to spend with somebody to deal with only one specific issue. We can sit with somebody for like 90 minutes at a time and really get a sense of who they are and what might be able to move the needle for them.
mm,
If
mm.
that, yeah.
Yeah, that's well said. You just mentioned that our parents, or your mother and my father, who we both used to be talking to each other at the time when they were both still alive. Um, my father was actually from what I don't know. I'm not sure if you were familiar with this term, Eileen, but they call it the parish in Limerick.
Yes, at
Um,
Lunkard Street, isn't it? Because
and at
that's
Lunker
where,
Street,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Andrea's
So
from as well.
that's where
Yeah,
Andrew's from, is right. Yeah, that was a
yeah.
coincidence, funny coincidence. So my dad would have grown up in Corbally and the Island Field and all around Limerick there. Um, and it's yeah, he'd get a kick out of the fact that, like, here I am sitting at the Limerick City Community Radio talking. He'd get a kick out of that if he was around. And he's one of the guys that used to drive around in his car and listen to local radio.
Mm.
But yeah, it was, I mean, to pull back from the emotion of it for a minute, it was, I'm putting on my hat here, taking off my son's hat and putting on my nutrition therapist hat. It was very interesting, which is an awful way of saying it, but that's what I mean by changing my hat. It was interesting to watch Dad's sort of, I guess you'd call it descent into dementia after being fit and healthy. He was a rugby player all his life. Well, he was a rugby player when he was young. He was always fit and healthy, and then it was taken away from him. And to see that happen in full knowledge that if he if he was the kind of person, and this is the thing, and it sounds like I'm slagging him here, but I'm not. If he was the kind of person, this is I think this is very relevant to the way people think about health. Um, Dad to me is emblematic of a lot of people of our age actually and older. I think it's kind of like we kind of think things are set, and that's the way they are, and the way they are is the way they are. And it was interesting to look at Dad like that, and um, for years, I would have been talking to him, but not only that, when my brothers and sisters would have been talking to him about, oh, Dad, you need to kind of try, you need to stop doing this, you need to do more of that, and you're on these medications that you don't necessarily need to be on for heartburn, and we'd be talking to him about his health. He'd be interested, but he wasn't the kind of guy that was going to like up and change things, and it was very interesting to watch. With some sort of predictability, how he kind of declined and eventually, into dementia. And it was frustrating to look at it. And I'm sure it was the same for you, Eileen. It was frustrating to look.
Yeah.
So, God, we have a lot of these kind of skills, but they're no good to people who aren't open to them And it's like, it's the hard question that we always ask is like, how do people open the door to that way of thinking? And I guess that's a long-winded way of coming around to saying, we'd love to help people open that door so that they start to think, oh, hang on a second, I could actually make those changes. I could actually do that.
Absolutely.
And
And
they,
it starts years before. And
and
that's the important
it
part,
starts
Brendan.
years before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
It
30,
starts years
40
before.
years before is when dementia actually starts to set in. So
Yeah.
when people understand that, they can make those changes earlier,
Mm.
or at least even if they're dealing with somebody who is an older age, they can help support them at the stage that they're at and help them maybe even just to halt the decline, in many
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we now have, like, in being in the game that we're in, we now have access to information about trials that are being done around the world by progressive doctors and stuff. And we've seen, like, the first of its kind trial is now out, where people with early stage dementia are stopping it in its tracks and even reversing it using nutrition and lifestyle changes. So this is a really exciting time to be there, to be witnessing it. And, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, that kind of stuff as
Mhm.
time goes on.
Yeah,
Interesting.
you're talking about in particular the work of Dr. Dale Bredesen there. I'm sure people will be, keen to learn a little bit more when they hear that sort of hope that you're holding out for them there as well. But we will do deeper dives into that, and we can certainly present a lot of the evidence, which it's evidence based, and that's the way that we practice. And also then whatever works in clinical practice, we will bring forward to people. And I suppose just a little side note here that anything that we do discuss, it is for information and educational purposes because we're not actually diagnosing. We don't diagnose. It's not our role. That's the role of the medical professional. But for us, it's more about that we want to bring this information, inform, educate, and we'll do what we can to bring to you the best and the latest in the research and you know so
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
needed to add that in there. If that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that phrase. We actually used it in college way back. It was like the idea of nutrition therapy. What we practice is it's kind of good to see it as like it's like the second fiddle in the orchestra. It's not the main fiddle. The main fiddle, so to speak, or the main instrument is medicine for most people. That's the go-to. But what we provide is like the second fiddle, which brings harmony to the music, so to speak. I think
Mhm.
that's really what's missing, because medicine is kind of there to stop you from getting into worse trouble with certain conditions. It's mostly what
Mhm.
it does. It sort of, it helps you over symptoms. But the
Mhm.
parallel that you can do for yourself if you have the information, the insight, and the willingness to do it, is
Mhm.
you can bring greater harmony to your life. So you can kind of make yourself feel better, and you can increase your sort of pool of wellness in your body, despite the fact that you might have conditions. And that's what makes a huge difference to your lifestyle. That's the kind of profound changes that we see. It's huge differences when
Absolutely.
it's done right.
Absolutely. And like that, nobody's going to come running to us when if they have a broken arm or a broken leg, they're obviously going to go to the hospital. They're going to go for acute care medicine, which is exactly as it's supposed to be. And that's where it works at its best. But for those chronic kind of illnesses, etc., that you're talking about, that's where, we like to look and we spend that time looking at, well, why is this occurring in somebody's body? So we're looking more towards the root cause rather than just looking at something that can, you know, mask symptoms in a sense or, suppress them in any way, shape, or form. But I know that that also has to occur in the moment for people to get some relief, etc. But after that, we need to look beneath and see what actually is going on, so that people can get, resolution, hopefully, but certainly to get some sort of respite from a lot of their signs and symptoms.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'm wondering, like, what we'd love over time is for people to send in their stories, even text them into the show, and or email them in, or tell us some of your story, or tell us what it is that you'd like help with, or ask us if you know somebody, if it's someone in your family or your friend or yourself that's struggling with some sort of a problem. It doesn't have to be like a diagnosed health condition. It could be just some sort of general health issue, tiredness,
Mhm.
like being a general kind of health issue, sleep. It doesn't have to be diagnosed. We'd love if you were to just sort of send in your queries on that and say, like, what way do you think about this, or what approach do you think I should take here, and we'll be happy to sort of share our thoughts with it. And in some cases, maybe we would be quite happy to sort of do some research for you and come back the next day and talk to you about it. And so I'm kind of putting out the call there. Anybody listening that's interested, think about that. Think about sending your questions into the show, and you
And you
can
get two brains,
get two
working
brains
on
on
your
it.
at the same time, which is absolutely amazing to get that kind of knowledge, as you say, Brendan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd be really interested just to hear about people's experience, like listening to the show over time. For people to just give feedback, send in their comments and thoughts about it. Um, it's something that I personally use a lot in my life, which is feedback. I get a lot of feedback from. I think of it as feedback, like in an engineering sense, feedback from the system. I get feedback from my clients to see what's right and what's wrong, and that's a core part of the way I approach health. And I think it's a good way for people to think about approaching their health. It's not like it's not like you're looking for an answer. It's not like you're looking for an answer. You're looking for um, the sorry, I got a tickle. Um, if you're looking for a single answer, it's probably the wrong way to think. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's more like if you take the point of view that you've got a problem and you're going to try something, you're going to get some help, and then you're going to see what happens and take feedback. This is my point about feedback. So if you get feedback from your body or from a therapist that's trying to help you, and you turn it into a journey, that's when kind of the magic happens. You kind of set your mind on making uh, piecemeal or step by step changes over time, and eventually you'll come out the other side and it's like, yeah, I stuck with it. I got some feedback. It's not like what I'm trying to say is, if you're looking for an answer for something, it's probably the wrong way to think, because there isn't necessarily one answer to any of the problems that people have for health problems that they have. It's more like there's 50 answers and you have to kind of find the right one. But there's common denominators that can help you find it all the way. I don't know if you think
So you're thinking of putting in a change, and then you just see, does that work for you? You measure as you're going along, and you take your time to tweak. So whether it's taking out a food, let's say eliminating something for a short space of time, maybe over the course of 6 weeks, responding to your body is going to respond to that in one way or another. And then when you bring something back into the system, then you're going to measure what signs and symptoms, for example, that you might feel once more. And you're taking record of that. And then you have a wealth of information that you can make the next step forward with, whether that's reintroduction of something or eliminating something altogether.
yeah,
So that's, yeah, I love that, that you're
yeah.
saying that that's the constant feedback, but that also helps in terms of getting people to be much more in tune with their own body and what's going on, because that's really, really important to follow those signals, whether it's a hunger signal, or, even something as simple as, if someone's feeling tired, to actually go with that signal and then go straight to bed rather than sitting around waiting for second wind, or falling asleep and releasing your sleep pressure, as it's known as. So your
Mm,
body
mm.
is always talking to you. It's always giving you great feedback, but it's just, if we're not listening, if we're not tuned in, we miss some of the nuggets that can really help to expand your health spectrum.
Tuning in is the perfect phrase for it, actually. Tuning in is something that I talk an awful lot to my clients about. It's the idea of uh, essentially sort of monitoring your own body. I find, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this comment. I find men, generally speaking, are terrible at this. And I think there's a physiological reason for it. I think we perceive pain differently. We have different names for maybe pain or soreness. I remember my uncle one time saying that I was saying, do you have pain in your hand? And he was like, no, no, not pain, it's sore. And I was like, that's pain, But we have a different way of thinking about it. But
He's a
so
hardy book.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. Didn't want to say pain. It sounded like I'm saying the wrong
Yeah.
thing. It doesn't sound manly. But it's very true. It's something I practice myself, I have to say, and not to get like way into the weeds here already, but it is actually technically true to say that men have cycles, I'll call it, the same as women have cycles, but women have monthly cycles, which are obvious, but men have less obvious, and they're not monthly, but they are cycles. in how our physiology sort of adapts and changes and rolls over time. And it's very subtle sometimes, but you can tap into it and you can notice things like better motivation at certain times, different appetite at certain times, different energies. But it does take a sort of a process of what I call tuning into your body. So that is something that I think we will probably talk about a lot. And it doesn't make sense to people at the start a lot, unless you're used to the idea, it doesn't really make sense. But any sort of sign or symptom or feeling or sensation that your body is giving you, even if it's fleeting, even if it's very subtle, and particularly if it's not subtle and it's very obvious, uh, they're the things that you can use to tell you if the things that you're trying to do to change your health, if they're kind of going in the right direction or not. And I don't mean to suggest that it's a foolproof plan that you can change your diet and, suddenly go assess by a pain in your knee whether you're going the right direction or not. But generally speaking, you can get this feedback from your body. It will talk to you if you listen to it, and you can sort of feel like I'm moving in the right direction. And I find this is one of the great things. I would call this an empowering thing about going on the journey of health and going on the journey of change, is that it's actually empowering. That's the word. It's empowering to be
Mhm.
able to tune into your body. This applies to men and women. It's empowering to be able to tune into your body and kind of go, right, so I made that change. Let's say I started going to bed an hour early. Let's say it was simple as that. And you're a week down the line and you're like, oh, you know what? I used to be sort of adjusting my neck or my back. It was always stiff and sore, and now I'm not doing that anymore. That's a classic tuning in moment there. And you're like, wow, I wonder was it the fact that I'm getting an hour extra sleep? And you might never connect those things until it happens. And and then more obvious examples are when you eat something and you feel bloated or you get constipated or you get some sort of digestive upset. That's direct feedback. So all that kind of stuff is the kind of thing that we will be talking about over time and asking you to look out for. So I'm just kind of planting seeds in your mind here on that. It's the tuning in process is so profoundly powerful at times, even though it can be very subtle. I don't know if you
Mhm.
think the same as me on that.
I absolutely do, and 100% agree. And I know at the beginning I mentioned I'm out here in Spain at the moment. I'm actually here, and this is a home that my parents bought many years ago, almost 20 years ago, in fact, as a small holiday home for themselves. And they used to enjoy coming out here a lot. And I spent quite a number of gorgeous little holidays. And my girls, I have two girls, when they were very, very young, I used to come out here with my mother. Now, not in the hot time. She wasn't big on the really, really hot weather. She loved to come out here in both springtime and in the winter as well. So for me, coming out here, it's been part of tuning into myself, especially since Mum passed away. She only passed away last August, end of August last year, and it was quite a rapid decline for her. She had gone in literally only 1 year shy a day. Like the day that she died, she had only been just almost a year inside in the nursing home. And although she had very bad short-term memory loss, she was actually very with it in terms of the conversations she would have with people. She just wouldn't remember necessarily the full conversation she'd had. And for me to watch that happen, and then she had a really bad fall last April, and that was the beginning of the end for her. She had a very bad break in the top of the femur and was pretty much bedridden after that. And it all just led to her demise. So, with the impact of that and all of the grief, and plus now I was only 10 days after having back surgery myself when my mum had taken a fall. So, I'd had a micro discectomy, and I was literally recuperating and couldn't lift anything, as I say, even heavier than a cup, let's say. So I was really just feeling the strain of it, I suppose, over the course of the year, and compounding that grief. Then I think it just led me into quite a dark space. And I had to tune into that and to just realize that, okay, hang on a second. Not only am I depleted post surgery, but also with all of the adrenaline of the last few years of watching the decline, both parents with dementia, and in particular for mum, it took its toll on me. And I knew that I nutritionally had to bring myself back into balance. I had to get my sleep back on track and everything else. And I fundamentally just needed to get a break from everything and to basically reset. So that's what it was to come out here for me, to just
Mm.
spend that time, in a sense, not cocooning in a bad way, but just looking out for my own. mental health, but also making sure that I'm getting the vitamin D that I need. And I spend time talking to my neighbor that I know very, very well here, but I'm going out and I'm doing all the long walks that I wanted to do to really just focus on me. I've no responsibilities outside of just taking care of me for this short time while I'm over here. And it's not that I don't want to see my family. I have one of my daughters coming out to me next week to visit me, but it was just to say, no, I just actually need sunshine and to slow down because I have
Yeah.
been just go, 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 whether it's to do with business and content and everything else. And that's where I have to literally walk the walk. If I'm going to,
Mm.
I need to practice what I'm going to preach. So whatever I talk to, whether it's, females coming to me that are in perimenopause, the same as I'm in perimenopause and menopause, they just want to see that, okay, does this work for you? And I say, we'll tailor it towards you. It's very personalized. So I'm in the midst of personalizing my own plan, which really is, it's very, very highly individualistic. And I know for me, I have the benefit of being able to look at my genetics and everything else. So really tweak things, maybe to a little bit too much fine tuning and tweaking it and get into my head a little bit on the detail of it. Well, that's when I can talk to you, Brendan, about certain therapeutics and everything else, or we'll have a discussion about things like HRT, and that might get a bit controversial between the two of us at times.
Yeah.
But like that, we're open to all these conversations with people and bringing them in, and it's to see, if people want to watch along on what my journey is through a lot of that, they're more than welcome to. I'm an open book for most parts of my life anyway. I always have been. So I'm happy to let people in on, what's working for me and that kind of
Mm.
thing. But like that, you have to just take what will work for you and apply it to you because health is individual, you know?
Well, let me comment on that because that's a big thing. What you're after sharing there is such a big thing. So much so that you're probably aware of this, but there's as part of our training and as part of I do a lecture. I do one or two lectures a year for our both of our former colleges, the International Institute of Nutrition and Health. And what the students are being taught now is part of it. What they're being taught is practitioner self-care, right? Which you're
Mhm.
kind of referring to there. But what's interesting about that is that's a new idea in the world. That's not an old idea. Like that's like most doctors don't do it. A lot of healthcare professionals and a lot of psychologists and people in the
Yeah,
business.
should look at the rate of burnout. You can see
There's
it
there's
across the
huge
world.
there's huge burnout.
Mhm.
There's even I don't know if this is true in Ireland, but it's true in America that the the GPs Association, they have their own Alcoholics Anonymous Association. There's fierce stress involved in a lot of what they do, and to be fair, it's a tough game, but there's a lot of stress. But the idea that somebody would spend, prioritize time to take care of themselves it's funny that it's a new idea, and
Yeah.
it's and
It's
like
alien to so many people.
it's
Yeah,
alien to some people, and
yeah,
like we
yeah.
we um we ask our clients to do it, but I think it's inevitable that we have to come around to the idea exactly what you're talking about and do it
Yeah.
ourselves. It's
I think old attitudes might still prevail in some areas in terms of, why not just suck it up? You'll get
mm,
through it. How
yeah,
do you think we managed years ago? Whereas that wasn't necessarily managing, that was just getting by in
that
a
was just getting
sense,
by. Yeah,
yeah, getting by and not, I'd rather know that I'm optimizing what I can for me,
yeah, yeah,
especially at coming up to 52. Let's face it, I don't have the same energy as I had in my 20s, even though I feel like I'm still in my 20s in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
I'm more limited, especially since the surgery on the back, but I don't know. You've seen this, Brendan. Like even the other day, I got to a point where I just said, you know what? I have no more F's to give. And you've seen the little reel I posted the other day on the
Yeah,
back of Halle Berry's challenge. And I
yeah.
did a little bit of a dance here in this very same sitting room in my bikini because I just thought, what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? I'm waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect content for my business and everything else. And I just thought, that's a waste. It's a waste of a life. It's a waste of time. I've just got to say, this is who I am, warts and all, and just get on with it.
Tell
Isn't
him,
that
tell him
it?
tell him the best bit that happened after.
Oh, that it was shared by Halle Berry
Yeah,
and by
you're
Respin,
yeah.
her platform.
You're
I've
now
had
Halle
close to
Berry's friend.
I've had close to 50,000 people look at the reel since then, which has been fantastic, I have to say, and it's now who doesn't love it when they get a little bit of a boost and people are saying, "Oh my goodness, fair play," you were very inspiring. I had people come in and say to me, even in the DM, saying that was so inspiring. I just love to see that somebody is so carefree or whatever. That took me a long time to get to that space. I was never that way when I was
Mm.
younger. I was always much more concerned. Maybe um Andrea could even tell you this. Like I would not have gone anywhere without makeup on. Could I happen to screed of makeup on me? Like, what's the point? I'm in 35-degree heat. It would melt off my face. So it wouldn't be a pretty sight, as they say. So I've stopped giving that much,
Yeah, it
if
was.
of the kind of what's the word? I'm lost for the word even now, but that much importance, I suppose, is the thing on all of that. I would
Yeah.
much rather that I have the deeper connections with people and the conversations with people than worrying about whether I get a like or
Mm, mm.
or that kind of thing. But it's been interesting. It's been fun.
It
Put it
was.
that way.
I guess it was a leap out of fear in one sense you could call it. I
Mm.
guess. But it was. I guess it was really satisfying that Halle Berry you kind of reposted it for you. But I'm tempted to. Like I'm not even joking, but I'm tempted to joke like lads, you should go and look at the reel. But there's probably the women probably want to look at it more than the men do, to be honest, because it's interesting. It's a 1 minute bit of fun,
Uh,
but no, I do get it. You know what? There's so many interesting things that you're unpacking there. Like even back to your mother and the fact that she fell and that was the
mhm.
beginning of her demise. I think a lot of people, well, let's be straight about it. Like our age and on, we're getting to the point um, where something as simple as a fall down a step could radically change your life, and
Absolutely.
a decline begins, and it's the one thing that sets in motion the decline for most people that are 60, 70, 80, depending on their health.
Mhm.
And um, there's so much that you can do about that in advance, to offset it. I mean, you can be unlucky and fall, but a lot of falls are simply because the strength isn't in the muscular system and the bones, and
Mhm.
and a certain amount of awareness probably isn't there. A
Frailty. Yeah, people
certain amount of
just becoming
frailty.
frail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And these functional, what we call these functional things, are they can be modified. You can do a lot about this. You can have a disease, but you can still do a lot about your general health. It's kind of sounds like a
Mhm.
contradiction. Like you don't have to cure a disease to sort of, if you don't mind me saying it this way, to be healthy. You can actually kind of feel healthy, be vibrant, and still have, something like dementia or cancer. Ultimately, yeah, if it's degenerative, it's going to take you eventually, but you can offset an awful lot of the problem.
Mhm.
A heart disease or something like that, you can offset an awful lot of the problem with diet and lifestyle modification. And the falling alone is one of the things that you can focus on, and be kind of be inspired to sort of do something now about it. And
Absolutely.
the other
And I
point.
think, Brendan, sorry to cut over you there, but I know for the most part of her life, my mum was not somebody who would do a lot of exercise, didn't do a lot of walking or anything else like that. And they're all things that would have helped prevent that kind of frailty, and the trip hazards and all those kind of things. Because it wasn't the first fall that she'd had. She'd had a few falls in the last few years, with
Okay.
broken arm, broken wrist. So it was a slow decline, but it was a combination of everything from post menopause, and the lack of the hormones and everything else, but also that lack of that basically that the effect of gravity on bones because she wasn't doing any kind of exercise. Now, I'm not saying that people need to run out there and, spend a fortune jumping into a gym or anything else like that. If that's not your gig, that's fine. But it's even something as simple as start by going just for a 5-minute walk. Build that up over a couple of weeks if you need to a 10-minute or whatever else. It's the same as like, park a little bit further away
Mm,
from the grocery store and walk that little bit further. If carrying your own groceries versus, using the shopping trolley, for especially if it's only like 2 bags, to even be able to lift that sort of weight helps not only the muscle strength, but also the bone density. It's those little things because a life of convenience that we all have, and I'm not saying to take away from the conveniences of life and the machines and everything else, but we have moved away from doing a lot of the things that were manual tasks years ago that used to keep people strong,
Mm.
especially coming into their senior ages, where people were out gardening, they were, cutting the grass with those. Do you remember the old push ones with the rotary blades that were on them? I remember we had those years ago, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not that old, but those kind of things. So you're talking about getting out using a spade and everything else. It's the movement. It's the movement of the large joints. Like we'll have hopefully experts coming on over time as well to be able to talk much more deeply into these topics, like the functional movements of the hinge movements, like squatting and everything else that goes along with that. And if now, there are a number of practitioners that I follow, and it's a case of, when you have this goal in mind that you want to be able to lift your case above your head and put it into an overhead bin on an aircraft so that you can fly on holidays at the age of close to 100, that's where you want to be at. You want to have the strength to do those things still. It's about longevity
Mm.
in the long run, and
Mm.
preventative. What we do is predominantly preventative, or at least we want to shape people's mindset into that way of thinking.
Do you remember me ever talking about? There's a little story, a little anecdotal story I actually put into my book. It was about an Inuit. It was a documentary that I saw years ago about the Inuit, and the documentary maker was following two kind of youngish kids, Inuit kids, and they were out in the ice floes on their canoes and kayaks, and they were following them for a while. And for a strange one of them, the documentarian asked us kind of a strange question to the young girl. And I think the young girl was maybe I don't know, she was like 15 or 18 or something, and it was talking about the danger of their life. And he said, how do you think you'll die, or how would you like to die, is actually what he asked her. And I remember thinking that's a strange question, but it was an interesting question. And she told this story that her grandmother, who I think she said she was like 98 or something. Um, Her grandmother had brought them out in the kayak, herself and her young brother, when she was like 6 or something. The girl was about 6 and her young brother was 5. And the grandmother, who was 99, brought them out in a kayak, teaching them how to hunt seals.
Yeah.
And while they were out there in the ice floes, the grandmother keeled over with a heart attack and died. And the girl turned to the documentarian and said, "That's how I'd like to go out."
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was such a powerful answer. But like, she was 99 and she was paddling kayaks. And that's something, that very concept is something I think we should probably talk a lot about over time, because my interest in the Weston Price story, which we can get into that over time. I don't have to get into it now, but the study of healthy tribes around the world was one of my inspirations to get into health and nutrition initially. But healthy longevity was part and parcel of that story.
Mhm.
And like, there are stories of similar ideas. It's like 80 and 90 and even 100-year-old men dying because they fell off their horses. It's like what a way to go, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
but to be able to be on the horse, like getting up on the horse wasn't the problem. They fell and hit their head off a rock or something, and they were
Yeah.
killed, and it was like and their lives were celebrated. It's like that there's a possibility, that possibility is built into our genetics, if we sort of, I guess, power them properly. That's kind of one way to think about it. And that potential is there in humans, and I think we've forgotten about it. And I think we've settled for a sort of a life of, I'm going to start to decline at 65, and by the time I'm
Mm.
85, I'll need someone to help me, go to the toilet.
Yeah. And
That's,
the genetics are not your destiny either. It's just,
hmm,
there's a way to modify them in a sense, epigenetics, and yeah,
yeah, epigenetics.
with all of these lifestyle.
I think if our genetics could actually talk, they'd look at us and say, like, "What the hell are you doing to yourself?" You know?
Wake up, people, wake
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
You realize you've got
Yeah.
all this capability. Um,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, I'm not even talking about being superhuman. I'm talking about being a normal human. Um, I think we're slipping away from that. I think there's a lot of problems in the world of health. There's a lot of problems with fertility in the world. There's a lot of problems, and they're building up. And there's
Mhm. Mhm.
underlying common denominators to them, which which are the very things that we should talk about over time, because there's a
Yeah.
lot you can
Yeah.
do. And I think there's two things I think. One is one is there's a lot you can do and you can learn about it and do it. But the other thing is, I'm going back to your very point about the moment you decided that you were going to dance in your bikini. It was like it was we were just talking about it before the show started, and it's like everyone's just going to do what they're doing until they're done doing it, and then they're going to go on and do something else. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and
Yeah.
we just won't do things until we're ready. But
Yeah.
a lot of the reasons I think we're not ready is because we just don't understand what's available. We don't understand the power we have. And we don't really get that there's something we can do about this thing that seems so big and powerful. And like in this case, I'm talking about, let's say, age and decline. Like there's something you can do about it. It's going to happen, but there's something you can do to make the journey much more enjoyable. And most people don't believe that. They don't realize it's true. And so they're just never
Mm.
ready to make the change. So hopefully we're going to prod a few minds over time with these ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brendan, the important thing is that anyone that's listening in, that they recognize that there's a huge amount of hope, no matter what their situation is at the moment. It's those small little changes that can make a difference. And there's nothing here, like from either of us, that's about shaming people either for the choices that they have made previously. Because once you become aware of something, you at least then are in the full knowledge of whether you're choosing it to continue forward yourself with informed consent.
Mm,
Or, if you'd say, oh, hang on, I never understood that, I never realized that before, and then you make a dramatic change for yourself. It's all about, just choosing, as I say, what works for you. It doesn't have to be all out, change everything in one day. It's day by day, meal by meal for the most part. Sometimes people can say, they go out on a Saturday night to have a big splurge. And for some people, if they enjoy a bit of alcohol or whatever, they might allow it to topple into the next day. And all of a sudden, then, it kind of trickle effect into, oh, sure, I might as well. I'm feeling hungover. I'm going to just, binge on something else, And
mm, mm,
this is
mm.
not criticism, but this is just observation for people because they
Yeah.
just seem to throw in the towel and just say, oh, I'll start again on Monday.
Yeah.
When actually you can start on the next meal. And
I,
then you're
I,
not going to beat yourself up over the whole thing that the whole weekend was a washout kind of thing.
I was exactly that person for most of my life. I figured out stuff that like diet wise that really helped me. But if I kind of took a slide or if I went on, I don't know, on the tear at the weekend and there was a slippy slope, next thing I'd find it was like 4 weeks before I was back on my plan again. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll have a bit of this and have a bit of that. Oh, I had it in for a sheep, hung for a sheep, hung for a lamb. I've done it now. I'll have a bit more of it. That's a very powerful psychology that I found myself I had to break over time.
Yeah.
I'm still in the process of breaking it, but I
Yeah.
can say I've more or less found kind of I don't even like to call it a diet because it's not a specific diet, but it's just a way of eating that that suits my body. And
Mhm.
it does involve not eating some stuff that I'd like to eat. So, but the more sort of energy it gives me, the better I feel in it, the easier it is to stay in it. But still, there's going to be times when I go away with the lads, or meet up with my brothers, and we have a bit of fun after a match or whatever it might be. And it's like, oh, okay, now we got to watch myself, because now I want to eat more of that stuff, and I want to drink more beer, and I want to eat more bread, and the things that don't suit me.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's where the bliss point of foods and some of those, we'll say ultra processed items come into effect.
yes.
And it's where they have been manufactured in order to grab onto the taste buds and have lifetime committed followers of all these,
There's
whether
no
it's
question.
a particular type of soda or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, that I get, I understand it because a lot of these foods and drinks can be like domino effect.
Mm, mm,
And you ask yourself then, what is your domino food? For some people, it might be in the evening time that they like to just, say that they'll have a few crisps or,
yeah.
salted peanuts or whatever. But
Mm,
sometimes then they find that once they start, they can't stop. And
yeah.
that's what we would refer to as the domino effect, the
Yeah.
domino
Yeah.
foods. But you still you make your choices and you make it about something fun as well. But at least if you're going to make those empowered choices, you can do that. You don't have to be 100% perfect all the time. It can have that flexibility. You and I were speaking about that earlier, about being omnivores and flexitarian about food approach and lifestyle approach and everything else, that there's space there for the foods that bring you joy, even if it happens to be something that is processed or whatever, that you're choosing to have it on a specific occasion. And enjoying it while you're having it guilt free, all those kind of things. So we will get into that over time as well. That idea of, that let go of some of the notion that food is good or bad, that there is no morality to food. We both believe that it's there, food is there as information for your body, but it's more than that. It's about connection. It's so much more nuanced. It just doesn't have this one function of just fueling the cells in the body.
Yeah.
It means so much more,
Mm.
especially in a cultural context and everything else, and out beyond that, and the flavor that it can, be taken in from various different cuisines, and the mix and everything else just can bring a pure enjoyment to people as well, and we want people to still enjoy what they're eating,
Mm.
not rather than seeing it as a chore or being so rigid that they feel, trapped, I suppose, in a food trap.
Yeah, that's very true. The social side of food, it's so powerful. Um, the beauty of, if we put back on our therapist hat here for a minute, the beauty of the background that we have, the training that we have, is it's like we can understand the deeper sort of driving forces behind stuff like food cravings, or desires for food, or how higher blood sugar rises and falls depending on what you eat, and how that can influence your brain, how that in turn can influence your appetite. Like, those are the kind of things we piece together for clients all the time. It's our, pardon the pun, but it's our bread and butter. And
Mm. And
and it's
that'll be a foundation of many of our different shows. I would say it would be the blood sugar roller coaster
yeah,
and things like
yeah.
that.
And so there's certain things that are I would call them common denominators to so many different problems, that if you understood if you just generally understood the underlying thing, the underlying common denominator, you say, oh, that's the thing that I'm trying to solve. Whereas the individual food, and maybe I'm not going to use the word addicted, that's a bit heavy, but like, you're kind of craving certain foods, and you're like, oh, I can't stop eating ice cream or crisps or whatever it might be. With a deeper understanding of it, you can kind of realize that there's patterns to your day, to your life, to your diet, and you can kind of realize, oh, you know what? I'm like, literally now, literally, I'm more likely to get into an argument with my wife or my husband or something, you know, on a Wednesday if I eat crisps on a Monday. Why? Because the crisps on the Monday made me, I don't know, I had to get up to drink water in the middle of Monday night, and that made me a bit tired. And the following day I was a bit tireder, and so I ended up eating more, I don't know, something else, bread. And the bread didn't agree with
Mhm.
me, and I brought sugar went off, and then I wanted some sweets, and then I was eating crisps again, and then I was having an argument. And it's like, the whole thing is connected. It's beautifully connected in some way, and it's kind of funny when you can see it from that perspective. But the underlying mechanics of it, the chemistry of it, um, that's the kind of stuff that we can help people see and understand. And so we get random stories from clients about they can't stop eating random foods, and you're like, how can anyone, like, not, like, they can't give up, I don't know, something like they give up peas or something. You think you'd never think of peas, they give up peas, and next thing they stop having headaches, and you're like, what? How can that be? And it's like, okay, well, let's trace it back, and sometimes you can trace it back, but that tracing down into deeper layers of things is what Eileen and myself love doing. It's kind of like,
Mhm.
it's our grounding, if you like, in the science of it. But on top, the sort of basic advice is, I'm not going to say the basic advice is the same for everybody, but there's a general pattern to it and once you sort of see the pattern that you're stuck in, it's easier to free yourself up from it. Um, but there's a serious side to it. Like, there's as Eileen was saying, there's a social side to eating, which is very emotionally powerful. And particularly if you go on a diet, what I'm unpacking here is just ideas that we can talk about over time. But if you're on temporarily on a diet because you're trying to do something like fix headaches, or change your skin tone or something to make it better, or lose weight or something like that, like, there are difficult things that you have to do with food. You have to go off certain foods maybe sometimes, and when you're out and about with people and you're off food, there's a whole episode we could talk about what happens there. Like, people start putting pressure on
Oh
you to
yeah,
eat the food
yeah,
beside them. So it's
yeah.
it's a hugely powerful social thing. And if you're fortified in your mind in advance, what's coming. It's easier to deal with it. So there's so many things that we can talk about here. It's like, it's really exciting actually to think about the breadth of areas that nutrition and health, touches on, and the problems that people have and the struggles they have trying to overcome it. So this is going to be interesting.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get the first questions from people, I suppose, and it doesn't matter how basic it is. It can be anything as simple as, you know, I've got somebody who has acne, to right through to somebody who is saying, I have now been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, and I've high cholesterol, and just more complex, kind of a number of different conditions, that we can just say, okay, well, let's look at it from our functional perspective, I suppose, is the thing, functional nutrition and functional medicine kind of perspective, and work through things that way. Now, this isn't, as I say, we're not going to be able to do all things for all people, but we will certainly be able to give a good overview anyway, so that people will understand, I think, more about what's going on with them, because I know it can be scary to walk out of an office, a doctor's office, maybe if you've been just told that you have to take a certain medication, and your head still could be spinning, wondering, well, why am I on it? And for many people, they don't understand why they're on a certain medication. It hasn't necessarily been explained to them, or they could be on combination of medicines. They may be on something that they haven't had a review for, that was only ever intended that they were on it on a short-term basis, and they could be on it. And we find this in practice, certainly with something like proton pump inhibitors. So anything that might be there to suppress stomach acid. And we find that in some cases, people are on those for a very long time when they're only supposed to be for a short term, for the most part, So it's more about giving the guidance to people and prompting you to go and ask questions when you do have to go to your own GP or any other, for consultation with anyone. In fact, it is more empowering. You mentioned that word earlier, Brendan, that it is about the empowerment. Now, we're not empowering people, but we're certainly bringing them to a point where they're empowering themselves by garnering all this information and, the informed consent, so that you can be, your own best advocate, because basically only you know your own body. You are your own best doctor in that sense, that you can really gauge what's going on signs and symptoms wise, and then all of the different biomarkers, like whether you've bloods done or various different analysis, that all brings, a clinical picture to it then. But that any sign or symptom that you're feeling is relevant, that it's important that people know as well that not to be dismissed, that they want to feel heard, because I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily feel heard all of the time, not everybody. And I'm sure it comes down to the pressure for time, I think, for a lot of the medical profession, that they just do not have the time. They're so overburdened in many cases that they can't, they quite literally deal with maybe 4 or 5 different complaints at one time. That's why you normally see that it's only one at a time.
Yeah. What's very good, what's very encouraging is that, like, at the top levels of the medical, what would I call it? Not the confraternity, but like the medical organizing system for the world. At the top levels, there's a recognition of these ideas that we're talking about, and there's a recognition that medical school, which is very detailed in medicine and side effects and primary care, very very heavy going stuff, was kind of designed. This is a way to think about it. It was kind of designed and it evolved around what you would call the acute care model, which means that people had immediate problems, and whether it was infections that were going to take them out, or injuries, or various like back in the time when antibiotics were developed. I'm talking about back then and earlier. Medicine was built around this idea of acute care, and that's where
treat them and street them. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't
Yeah,
that the
and
phrase?
that's where it sort of earned its stripes, and particularly with antibiotics and with pain management. Like, I remember listening to a doctor talk about an old guy. He was well on, this guy, and he was talking about, he can still remember the time, like, when kids were dying of infections, and he was talking about his grandfather, and who was a doctor. I remember this years ago, listening to the interview, and how empowering it was at the time when antibiotics were developed, and all of a sudden kids that were dying of TB were being saved. And he was quite emotional about it. It was actually a very emotional interview. But, like, to see the power of how science came up with something that stopped in its tracks a thing that was taking out your children and your friends and your mother and father, like TB and stuff like that. Um, you get to see the power of where medicine came from and why it's burned into people's minds. And then pain management was the kind of next big breakthrough, which is a very successful area of medicine. But it's designed around the acute care model. And the world has essentially shifted or changed in the intervening years. And now the biggest problems people have they're not really acute problems, they're chronic problems. So what's happening in the world of medicine, and the point I'm making here is people like the World Health Organization are recognizing this, is that
Mhm.
medicine is geared up, its thought process is essentially around acute care. Whereas actually what it really has to deal with today is chronic care. And so it's like the same mindset is being applied to chronic care. And so they're trying to put a lot of teaching and pressure and sort of, what's the word, social change, if you like, into the medical world to accept the fact that they need to sort of adjust their mindset to a more holistic mindset and see that most of the problems today are chronic problems, things like dementia and heart disease and even cancer and
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases. These are chronic, ongoing problems, and they're not.
Lifestyle diseases, as you say. Yeah.
They're sort of lifestyle diseases, essentially.
Metabolic and lifestyle
Yeah,
diseases for the most part. Yeah.
yeah, and and so like what they're trying to do is they're trying to gear the medical system up to either deal with this or to kind of work with other people that deal with this. And that's where the likes of nutrition therapists come in because that's who they're choosing to work with. Because that's our bread and butter, again, using that phrase. It's the ironic phrase, given that given that bread is a problem for a lot of people. um, but it's but the chronic conditions is like almost the default way that the likes of Eileen and me think. That's our thought process, our mindset, and
Mhm.
the blending of the two is sort of slowly happening, but it's very slowly happening, and that's kind of where we are. So it's a very complementary idea, but underlying these chronic diseases is again common denominators like chronic inflammation, like digestive problems, like food intolerances, and nutrient imbalances, and that's the core of what we deal with. That's just another way of saying basically, it's not only useful, it's quite powerful to sort of implement these changes, and in tandem with the medical world if that's what you're doing,
Yeah,
or without it if
absolutely.
you're not. That's the way it works.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Um, just moving away from that for a second, Brendan, and coming back more onto, I know you asked me earlier, what did I have for breakfast?
Mm,
Let's run through then what you would see as your typical day of eating. Like what kind of foods do you enjoy eating, and also just into that, like, do you grow your own food? Like, if you want to just let people know about
mm.
what your own kind of food ethos is, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. I feel like I should give a caveat. um, I My eating pattern has changed a lot over the years, and I what I found is one of the things that I had to get away from. I'll talk about the issues that I had and all that, but like one of the things that I found I had to get away from was this set notion of what breakfast, lunch, and dinner is. And so for most people, breakfast is something like cereal with coffee and maybe orange juice, maybe eggs or something like that. That's like
Mhm.
a cliched, you might say, breakfast. Whereas if you said to somebody, would you have stew for breakfast? They'd kind of look at you and think, what? Have dinner for breakfast? But that thinking for me is the thinking that I smashed that thinking in my head and I just blended them all together. So
Yeah.
I could have stew for breakfast. Easily. I could have burgers for breakfast, as in the meat, and or I could have eggs. So like, what did I have for breakfast today? I think I had like two. When I say burgers, I just mean the meat part. I had two burgers with relish. I had two eggs, and I had them on like a bed of lettuce, and that was it. And so what did I have for lunch? I had soup, and I can't remember. Oh yes, I had salmon actually, a piece of salmon for lunch. Soup and salmon, that's what it was. And for breakfast, I'm probably going to have it's either going to be a stew or it's going to be, I'm not sure yet. It's going to be like a roast chicken or it could easily be chops and spuds. It's something, so it's relatively simple, but I suppose the point I'm trying to get across to people is like the concept of what should be for breakfast, dinner, and lunch is all mixed up in my life, and
Yeah.
it's something
If we
that
just call them meal one, meal two, and meal
exactly,
three,
yeah,
it's a much easier way to
it's
just, yeah,
that's
to
exactly
address
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I love food. I love the taste of food. I like
Mm.
preparing food. I love food. I'm not like I eat it for fuel, but I live to eat and I eat to live. I'm both of them blended together.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call myself like very adventurous. I would try something, but I generally sort of come back to eating more or less the same stuff. I eat meat, fish, vegetables. I have some fruit. I would have stewed fruit often as a sort of a treat, not a treat, but as a dessert. Maybe with some cream, and that's kind of it. Like it's like I
You
don't I
keep it
don't
simple,
I kind
simple
of keep it
fare.
simple. Yeah. What don't I like? I'm not a mad fan of Indian spices, but I like uh, Cajun spices. I like having like herbs, Mediterranean herbs in soups and stews. It's like that. I'm not like yeah, like adventurous. It's not that I'm not adventurous. It's just that I just like what I like, and
Yeah.
I've tried lots of
Your
different things,
palate,
and
your
yeah,
palate over time has
yeah.
just, yeah, adjusted
I
to,
come back
yeah.
to it. Like I could eat the same thing for breakfast 5 times in a row. It wouldn't bother me. You know what I mean? I could
Hmm.
eat two burgers and two eggs for breakfast 5 days in a row. It just wouldn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I find it very simple. So what I don't eat because they don't agree with me is mostly any grains, and that includes and grains and nuts and seeds, and mostly grains though. So like I don't eat wheat. I actually do eat it, but I eat it very little. So wheat, even rice or barley, and even porridge oats, if I eat them for 3 or 4 days in a row, like if I had porridge for breakfast 4 days in a row, my sleep would start to get affected.
Hmm.
And it was my sleep that actually kind of tuned me in. There's my phrase again, tuning into my body. It was my sleep. I think it's true to say that for oh, good more than 10 years, 12, 15, 14 maybe years, I was like an insomniac. I was in and out of having insomnia, and it drove me bananas. And if anyone has ever suffered from it, they'll understand why it drives you bananas, because you don't know whether you've slept. Some days you could wake up in the middle of the night and you're not sure if you've been asleep or you were awake the whole time. It just becomes a bleary, dreary sort of crazy feeling. And you I don't know if everyone agrees. Anyone that had insomnia would agree with me, but Edward Norton's depiction of it in Fight Club was brilliant, and it just blurs everything blurs into one, and I was able to function. I still did my life and all that, but it was an awful time looking back on it, and that's when I had terrible back pain. It was connected to lack of sleep, and I I eventually figured out that if I took grains out of my diet, I started to sleep better. And
Hmm.
it wasn't like a full answer, but it was a really big part of the answer. And so I see that, or probably you and me would both call that something similar, like we're trying to heal our gut. So it's like that was a question I meant to ask you earlier. I'll come back to it later on, but like the idea of taking food out versus putting food in, that's the two things you can do with food.
Yeah.
You can either take it out or you can put new food in. For
Yeah.
me, taking food out, as in taking out grains out of my diet, had the biggest difference by far of anything else I've done. Bigger than supplements, bigger than eating, really good food, nutrient dense food. They're all
Yeah.
really good, but they didn't make anywhere near the impact that was made by taking out the food that was affecting me. And that's influenced my thinking greatly. So I actually think that I've come to the conclusion with clients and with myself that if you continue to eat food that doesn't agree with your body, I'm just going to use that phrase for a minute, doesn't agree with your body, because they can mean different things. If you're eating food that doesn't agree with your body, and you've got a problem, some sort of health problem, you're probably not going to fix the health problem unless you take out those foods first, and then you can start to do healing things like putting in foods that heal your body.
Yeah.
So I think
We
what
would we would see that as a 5 or approach. So we have specific way of doing these things, and
mm,
it is about removing things and replacing and re-inoculation, all these kind of it's just part of different protocols, I suppose, that we use. But the important part is, removing the offending. item first, we'll say, and
Mm.
then, replacing, putting back in the good foods, building up the gut bacteria, all those kind of things, because you'll find that a lot of what we'll talk about is coming back, centering back again on gut health for the most part, for most people, and gut health that would then govern, your mood, your sleep, your appetite, everything, how
Yeah.
well you're going to the bathroom, all those kind of things. So we'll always tie it back into the gut health and things like that as well. And, and movement, even something as simple as movement that can help with the rhythm of the gut. And, just it's a fascinating world. But I'm delighted to see though that you were so in tune, because I know a lot of women are in tune with their body, like not all, but men for the most part, I would find, don't necessarily pay attention, and they
Mm.
certainly wouldn't necessarily be the first to go off and say, oh, visit a doctor or something, so to be that in tune,
Yeah.
is commendable, especially 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago.
Well, before that, like let's say my health history before that was I had I had a condition called IBS, but I didn't have a label for it at the time. I didn't know
Hmm.
what it was. I didn't have the name. I didn't know I had it until I started studying nutrition. Then I realized,
Okay.
oh, that's what you call it. So there was a time where this is literally true. It's not a metaphor. I literally was carrying pain around with me every day, and sometimes it was fairly severe. And this is the bit that I even still find hard to believe myself, but I didn't notice it. And it's like people say that to me when I tell them the story. It's like, how can you not notice that you're in pain? And the answer is like, you might notice it initially, but eventually it just blends into the background and you accept it as a new norm. And
Hmm.
so I had pain in my gut. I had serious pain at some point, very acute pain at one point, just going to the toilet, and that itself is an entire show topic that you could talk about going to the toilet, as you know, a massively useful area of your life to tune into to give yourself feedback about how your health is,
Yeah.
your toilet habits. But I I was like literally crying doubled over in pain, like working in offices and trying to make it not obvious that I'm like 40 minutes in the toilet and I'm supposed to be at work and stuff like that. And anyone that's had IBS kind of knows we all get the same joke. Once you're in town, everybody with IBS knows where all the toilets in town are because
Yeah.
you're caught short all of a sudden and you have to go.
Yeah.
That was, it's in Brown Thomas up the stairs and down the back. I know where that one is. You have to run in to get it sometimes. But I didn't, what I'm commenting on there is the self-awareness. I didn't have it initially. I had to develop it. And
Mhm.
I got the idea of developing it just from reading books and from getting kind of inspiration from other people. So it's funny that I can't even give myself the credit for developing the self-awareness. Like it's almost like someone had to tell me to become self-aware, and then I started practicing it. And once I did, I realized, oh, I'm actually in pain. Right, that's
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
And when I bend over to tie my laces, pain in the gut. That's kind of what I'm talking about. And I still I was trying to manage it at the time. I still hadn't really connected the the subtraction of the food, the sort of removal of the food. I hadn't like connected it in my head. I was trying to put in things to fix it rather than take out things to fix it. And they kind of helped a little bit, but they didn't really help. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, later on when I got training and got qualified, I kind of you and me now would easily see the connection between bowel health, IBS, psychological health, and insomnia. They're all like just different faces of the same issue,
Connected. All connected.
all connected.
Absolutely.
And the biggest on that one important point, the biggest learning moment that I can remember on my own health that helped me to tune in better after that was I had a job. I won't say where the job was. It wasn't like the job itself was the problem. It was me. It was my head. I call it the wilderness years of my life. But I had this job that I didn't like, but it was actually kind of a decent. It was a good place to work. I was just like in the wrong place, and I was doing technical computer work, and I got an opportunity to kind of jump ship and get a much better job at the time, three times the salary. I was kind of youngish now at the time, and I took that. And the day that I decided to take the job, I hadn't even left the job. The IBS started to get better. And that's when I suddenly realized that there was this huge psychological link to it. Because, and when I thought back on it, I thought back to it, I realized, oh God, yeah, I was kind of like, I didn't see where my life was going. I was kind of didn't, I kind of wanted the job. I kind of didn't want the job. I didn't really fit in there. I was kind of slow to get going with my career because I changed career a couple of times. And that was such an eye-opening moment that the mind and the gut literally are connected. And now it's a duh, Brendan, how did you not
Yeah.
see it? Um,
Yeah.
but it's a common story that we hear now. It's so common now. It's not even a I don't even raise my eye anymore when people say things like that, and you're the same.
Yeah.
And
It's those little signals that the body's always sending out. And, if you ignore them, it's going to get louder and louder and
mm,
louder.
yeah,
And as you say, it's the trickle on effect from the lack of sleep and then that leading into, back issues or one begetting the other. And the same then with the gut issues. It's like your body is starting to just amp up the volume. In other words, pay attention to me, or
mm,
you're going to end up, you have a couple of decisions to make, which way to go. And when you do tune in, you can then, dial all that back down again,
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I have, yeah.
yeah.
I think very much the same. It's like I'm tapping you on the shoulder, and you're not listening, and then it's like
Mm.
I'm knocking on your back and say, turn around, listen to me, and you still don't, and then it gives you
Yeah.
a slap across the back of the head, and you're like, I'm still not paying attention, and then it punches you in the face, and then it breaks your nose, and it's like life just keeps hitting you harder and harder. That's probably a very
Oh, yeah.
male analogy there, but like it's like life keeps hitting you harder and harder until you go,
Yeah.
oh, now I'll pay attention.
Well, that's I'm laughing at that because I know that between the two of us, especially, our intention is to do a lot of the show live in studio. So I know for the first one, we're doing this recorded, obviously, because I'm away and, first it's kind of a soft launch of the show, I suppose. But the intention is to be in studio so that we can have the banter, that we can be live with people, whether they're, messaging in and they're getting a response pretty much straight away, or even if we're answering a question from the week before, those kind of things. And if we have an expert in studio, it will give way to the banter, because we generally do have the banter. Both of us have quite a quirky sense of humor, and actually very similar sense of humor in a lot of ways, but we're not afraid to um, just riff off each other either, and uh, and just go off on a tangent, and then you'll pull me back or I'll pull you back onto something, and and if we disagree, we disagree, and we
Mm,
agree to disagree on something, which is perfectly fine too, and we're not going to see, things in the exact same way all of the time. But what we do both agree on is that there is so much possibility out there for community, and in terms of community, even coming back to that, something we did speak about during the week is that, it's so wonderful to see all the different communities across Ireland, in fact, and I have been involved with some of them to do with like Dublin City Council and their Change for Life program that they've had over the years, and various other, the park runs. All of these kind of things that are on the doorstep in the different communities that people can get involved in. And it doesn't mean you need to go out and you have to run a 5K or a 10K. You go out and walk it, go out and take a stroller out, or just go and be there, volunteer. Volunteer work is something I love to do as well and have done over the years, like whether it's with strengthening families programs. I've also worked with Incredible Years. So all of these community based, and just facilitating within groups, because people learn from one another as well. You don't to be in isolation is exactly that. It's very isolating, and that's becoming one of the biggest health risks as well, to be socially isolated from people. So that's going to be something that we'll talk a lot more into over the coming weeks, that we'll
mm,
encourage people to get involved, especially as they get older. And for anybody that may happen to be, single or widowed or any of that as well, into the older senior communities, we're going to be encouraging you to get out and about. And hopefully we'll be out as well in the community doing something live, wherever within the community across Limerick. So we'd be looking for ideas from people as well coming up,
yeah.
whether it's, a farmer's market that we can go and do a live slot from, that kind of thing. So the ideas and the possibilities are endless, as they say. Yeah. So we'd love to hear from all the listeners and find out what would suit them, you know?
Yeah, it'd be great to get out into the community and do something.
Yeah,
I can't even like imagine what it might be. Maybe it's something to do with, I don't know, cooking or food selection. Actually,
yeah,
you asked me about did I grow my vegetables. I used to grow more actually, but I have a pile of spuds on growing at the moment. And
lovely.
I'll give one bit of a tip. I'm not at all like an expert gardener in any sense. I'm actually probably useless. I'd say I'm useless at it. I just love the idea of it. But I did come across this thing. Myself and my son watched these videos on YouTube about this thing called Hugel culture, which is a German name. Uh, Hugel culture, I think they call it, and it's like a raised bed. There's an idea for people if they wanted to try it, but it's worked so well for me. It's incredible. Um, it's a raised bed. It's like maybe a bit higher than knee height, like higher than a regular raised bed. And I built it with a corrugated sort of sheet up against an old concrete wall. And what you do is you fill the bottom of it in with cut branches and old logs that are kind of rotting, and and even old paper, and you can throw cardboard in there, and you build up a good kind of
Mm.
base of that stuff, and then you cover it with maybe more cardboard and put some compost over it. So I put some of that, that free compost you can get in the recycling center. I got like
Yeah,
trailer loads of that, shoveled it in, and then on top of that, I put some of the, let's say, the proper compost. That stuff isn't really great for growing directly, but it's good for a sub base. So that I put proper compost on top of that. And the idea behind it is kind of very simple. It's like the bottom where all the branches are, they slowly decompose, but it also becomes kind of a bug kind of hotel, and it
yeah,
encourages worms and bugs into it. And
fantastic.
and it
Yeah,
yeah, and it's no, it kind of breaks down over time, so the level kind of goes down slightly. But so on the one hand, if you've got a back problem, which I kind of had initially when I was doing gardening, this raises the bed up to a very manageable height. You're not really bending over that
yeah.
much, and everything that I've grown in it has just been fantastic. And it's like I put down one spud and it turned into, I'd say, 50 spuds, and each one I put down, and
Nice.
I put one year I put pumpkins in it. These heirloom pumpkins that I got from the urban co-op, pumpkin seeds. Put them in, and I got hundreds of massive pumpkins, and they were delicious. I was making pumpkin soup, pumpkin cake. I was chopping it into stews. I was giving them away to people, and I just couldn't
So we
believe
know where
it.
we're going to be for Halloween this year then.
Yeah, do you know what? I wouldn't waste these on Halloween. They were so good. There was this beautiful bright orange. They were like organic pumpkins, and they're they were like
Gorgeous.
they were a realm above the ones that you'd use for lanterns. And but yeah, I've
And on
grown.
that note, when you talk about the orange color as well, we're going to get into the weeds on the colors of foods and
Yes,
what they signify and everything else. So I'll hold that thought as well over the coming weeks. So
yeah.
delve more into that.
Color is probably one of the handiest ways for you to decide if you're getting enough breadth of nutrients and phytonutrients in your
Mhm.
diet. So the colors of vegetables is such a handy thing. Yeah, definitely we will talk about that.
Yeah, eat
But
eat the rainbow,
eat the rainbow. There you
not
go. Yeah.
Skittles, not Skittles.
Yeah.
Certainly not Skittles, as they say. Am I
But it's
even allowed
very,
to mention brand names?
yeah, no. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's so satisfying. Like to grow your own food, it's very satisfying. And it's just, I just kind of wanted to talk about the Hugel
And
culture.
your
I think
hens as well. You've hens as well.
we've a flock of hens. It's dwindling away at the moment. I need to resupply them. We've had hens for years and years, so we collect our own eggs, and they have what? They've got like nearly a half an acre to roam around. We've had like 12 or 13 hens. I've about four now at the moment, but they're still laying. And yeah, so we get our own eggs, and that's one thing. There's another story of the color. Anybody that has their own eggs will tell you if they're free ranging, they have to be free ranging. They have to be eating
Mhm.
grass. The color of the egg yolk is so much more deep orange from your own hens if they're eating out and about eating grass and bugs and the supplemental feed that you give them, versus the regular stuff in the shop. It's just a different kind of it's a different nutrient profile, and that color
Mhm.
means something. And we can look into that and see. We could, they can analyze it and they can tell you what it means. It means that there's a greater density of nutrients in that egg yolk than in the corresponding one, and it's so starkly different that it's actually difficult for me to sort of buy shop eggs now and eat them. I'm looking at them going, they're kind of a uh,
Withered looking.
pale comparison, to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still going to get nutrients and you're going to get protein from the white, but the deep orange is full of what we call
Yeah.
fat-soluble vitamins. And they're the things that are so great for your brain. And we
Yeah.
can get into that. Like egg, if you want something to feed your brain, you eat egg yolks.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anyone listening, then, Brendan, obviously this is like the ideal would be to have the space to have your own chickens, to have your own eggs and everything else. But we just want people to understand as well that also just depending on where you're at, to add in these foods, whether they are organic, free range, but even just to purchase them in the first place and to use them by whatever budget you can afford yourself. It's more beneficial to add them in, even if it is the regular, supermarket brand,
Mm,
that you've got there, because you're still going to get, as you said, nutrient profile in there.
mm,
And it may not be the highest quality, but it will certainly be of a quality that's much better than, a processed food or, something
yeah.
cheap and cheerful kind of thing, So it's about the whole food. We're both big advocates of whole, real food, minimally processed. It's not to say that foods are not going to be processed. Of course, you've got to have some form of convenience, especially for, most families would have two people working, and that you're time pressured. So we're going to be suggesting things that will be convenient, but like we'll be working you more towards the idea of batch cooking,
Mm,
using something, as you say, why not have dinner for breakfast the following morning?
yeah.
Why not have something additional cooked up on the evening time, like additional vegetables, and add them into a nice omelet in the morning time? It's just as like it's about time pressure, I suppose, for a lot of people, but it's about just saying to yourself, I'm going to take the time to nourish myself. And when you do that and you put yourself first and foremost and you ensure that you're nourishing yourself well every single day, everything else feels easier
Yeah.
for the most
So
part,
I can
you
give
know?
you, I give you on that one point. I can tell you. So I have two sons and a daughter, and my sons are like 20 and 18, and one of them is I thought at one point he was going to be like a chef. He's so good at cooking, but he's kind of gone away from it. But the other guy is more. They're both into fit and strong, so they're watching their protein and they're very very dialed in. But they would cook their own meals. So one of the things that they've been doing lately, it turned out to be so like I was amazed by how good this tasted, and I'm starting to do it myself. And in fact, I'm going to do this tonight in order to get a dinner ready for when I go off hiking tomorrow. I'm going to bring it with me
Mm,
cold. And it's basically very simple. It's like it's mince meat into a slow cooker for maybe 3 or 4 hours with some stock cubes, and there's different flavoring you can put in. You can put in stock cubes, or you can put in like even your jar of your favorite pasta sauce. This is very cheap, very kind of cheap and dirty, so to speak. And the regular frozen bag of mixed veg in the supermarket is just dumped in on top of it and mixed in at the last maybe two hours, and it cooks.
mhm.
And depending on how nice your stock is, it actually turns out delicious, and it's very simple.
Lovely,
And
lovely.
I've
And
eaten
most
two.
people have slow cookers, or a lot of people would have them anyway, especially if they're cooking for big families. Yeah,
Everyone should have a slow cooker. It's
I
like
love, I love mine.
mm. And yeah, if you have a big family, get a big one. If you have a small family, get a small one. But slow cooking is so handy. Everything is nicer in a slow cooker. No,
Yeah.
well, you can't do everything in it, but like it's really good. Like even chicken, even you can even cook burgers in a slow cooker, and they'll be done like perfectly soft. And depending on what you wanted, you can kind of caramelize them or whatever. But this thing is very simple. So it's basically mince and veg with some stock, and it works so well. Like we've brought it with me before on the hikes, and there's a group goes with us, and like somebody does the food, and so if I'm doing the
Mhm.
food, it's that, and they're like, "Oh, this is really nice." I'm like, "Do you know what? It's so simple. It's just so simple." So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my sons gave me that one. I wouldn't have thought of the frozen veg. I'd never think of frozen veg, you know.
And it's a question I get regularly from people as well. What about frozen veg? And you know what? For the most part, sometimes, especially in the likes of winter time, you're looking at frozen veg as being even superior to some of the veg that might have flown
Mm,
most way across the world and or was it in deep freeze or whatever for a long time. It has actually lost a lot of its nutrient profile.
yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes the fresh or the frozen can be better than the fresh. So
The
there's nothing wrong with it, and it's a great way to add in something, as you say, especially if you're cooking for a young family or for kids that you want to. sneak in a little bit of veg, throw in
Yeah,
into the pot.
there isn't even sneaking here. This is obvious, but still, you could do it that way.
Yeah.
But it's no, there is a point there, and that's the kind of stuff we can talk about. It's like there are some nutrients that you lose fairly rapidly if you freeze the veg, but you lose nutrients like one way or another. You're going to lose nutrients if you cook, if you freeze, if you even if you ferment, like you get different benefits, but you lose something. So it's a trade-off. And so what you don't want is the same thing all the time. What you want
Yeah.
is variety.
Variety.
But
Yeah.
so, so sometimes you want fresh veg and sometimes it's fine to have frozen veg. Like folic acid, for example, is lost fairly quickly in frozen veg. Funnily enough, it's not lost in frozen meat or frozen liver, which is a good source of folic acid. It's not lost in the freezing of meat, it's lost in the freezing of veg because of the structure that it's in. So yeah, you don't want to rely on frozen veg all the time, and you don't want to rely on overcooked veg all the time either. You want a variety. But this is
Yeah.
just one handy way to
You
do
want to recognize the vegetable after it's been cooked.
it. Yeah, yeah. You want to know what it is. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. I've
You know,
had
the other,
times in the past where I've had to question, thinking, okay, what is that? Yeah.
the other thing, speaking of cookers, the other thing that I highly recommend to nearly all my clients now is a soup maker. Now, I used to make soup in a pot before, but one day my wife bought a soup maker and I was like, oh, where has this been all my life?
20 minutes, I'm
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So good. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of mornings there's soup, we've it chopped, ready to go. We get up in the morning, press the on button. 20 minutes later, you've got like restaurant quality soup.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a really handy things. Does the
Sweet
blending all
potato
for you.
soup is actually really nice. I like the
Leek
sweet
potato, yeah, it's
potato.
lovely. Yeah.
Oh, sweet potato
Oh, sweet potato, yeah.
with lentil. I like the sweet potato with lentil. It's particularly nice and with a few spices, probably spices that you wouldn't necessarily be going for. You're not as gung ho on the spices I might be,
Yeah,
and absolutely just lift you. It's
yeah.
fabulous.
Mm,
I like that. Now when I say lentils, we'll also be talking about different ways. We're not going to be all just about meat because we know that there's going to be people in the community that don't necessarily eat meat or fish. They may be vegan or vegetarian, but we'll hopefully we'll hit across the board for people, in terms of, well, what can you do as alternatives then, to ensure that you're getting, as you said, your variety, because it's about the variety that you're getting in across the week, we'll say,
mm,
even to ensure, because every day you won't necessarily hit all the boxes every single day. It
mm.
mightn't be possible, but over the course of a week anyway, just to ensure that people are getting enough, but getting adequate reds and yellows and greens, and just, a
Yeah.
smattering. It doesn't need to be huge amounts of anything, but it just needs to be doses of good
At, at
nutrients.
at the risk, this is at the risk of contradicting myself now. This is the beauty of the whole topic of nutrition. It sort of, it waxes and wanes on certain topics, but the idea of variety is one that's kind of baked into yours and my minds. It's like you need variety, but it's actually kind of a modern day thing, and it's very true in the modern day because in modern day you do need variety because of problems with the way food is grown and processed and maybe overcooked or maybe whatever. There's the way that the food is grown and handled does contribute to a problem, and so one of the best ways to sort of overcome that is to have the variety. But actually, in the past, I think you remember me telling you this story before. Um, there was I won't go into too much detail, but just very briefly, there was a tribe, not a tribe, but kind of a tribe of people, a community of people in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland that were investigated for their food one time, and they were not eating variety. It was very stark to see what they were eating. They were eating a very limited sort of selection of food, but it was very nutrient dense food. So they were getting a
Mhm.
variety of nutrients in a relatively small variety of different foods, and the food was mostly cod, but they ate the cod's head and they ate the cod's liver, and they grew oats and they ate some seaweed, and there was like one or two other vegetables that they grew on the island, and they used to sort of mix them into pies, and that was it. So some grain, some fish, and some veg, and it was kind of a limited variety, but they were super healthy,
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah.
hardy and they were super healthy. So I mean, if you're eating really high quality food and what we call nutrient dense food, you get away with an awful lot of stuff. It's like you can kind of go by a different rule almost. So like nutrient density is something you're going to hear us talking about a lot. Nutrient density is like it's the amount of nutrient, let's say per gram of the food or per weight of the food. Then the
Mhm.
nutrients being the micronutrients, not the calories. We think of calories a lot, but it's not calories I'm talking about.
That's more energy. That'd be energy
Mm.
density then that we'd be
Energy
looking at
dense
when you're
versus nutrient
talking
dense.
about yeah,
Mm.
for the calories.
Yeah, so that you're going to hear us talking about that a lot. So whether you eat vegan or animal food or omnivores, either way, you're still looking for nutrient density because that's the thing that drives the machinery of your cells and makes your mind work and makes the whole
Mm,
thing work. The whole show is on the road because of nutrients, and then
mm,
it's fueled by calories. So you want as much nutrients as possible with as little calories as necessary. That's kind of the balance. And if you get that right, actually, magic happens in your body.
absolutely. Brendan, I know we've probably got about 25 minutes or so left in the show. So I'm just wondering, how can we kind of bring things together for people, from, I know we've spoken about quite a lot today, but how can we bring it back in so that people know what we're about overall, our overarching theme, would you say
Yeah.
then?
So I think our overarching theme is going to be helping as much as we can, helping the community, providing
Mhm.
us a resource, let's say, if that's a way to talk about it, to the community for that helps individuals on I would call it their journey of health, their journey maybe out of illness or their journey just to better health, or
Mhm.
even to maintain your health if you are healthy. So we're looking to sort of help you with that by by sort of capturing the essence of, I guess, our expertise that's our bread and butter again. It's nutrition and nutrition therapy. So, but it's not just our expertise. I think it's like nutrition for me is actually the fundamental sort of healing agent of health, no matter what your problem is. Nutrition is the core of everything. So it's like it's at the beating heart of health, and it's definitely, I'm going to use the word, it's messed up in most places. Nutrition is messed up for most people's lives in most places. The modern world has messed up nutrition. It takes
Mhm.
conscious effort to
Yeah.
to be to not only have a healthy diet but to be healthy in today's world. I
Mm.
think you'll probably agree
Many
to
many
this.
people are overfed and undernourished in
So
a
yeah,
sense. I suppose that's the phrase that's now used. Yeah.
overfed and
Oh,
undernourished, and even if not overfed, still undernourished.
yeah.
Undernourishment is it's not something. It's something we thought we'd kind of confine to the past, but it
Yeah.
actually isn't.
Yeah.
It's a chronic problem.
Yeah. And
So,
sometimes it can be intentional, but for other people, it's very unintentional, that
mm,
under eating. But like for both of us, we would see that time and time again, that can be actually at the root cause, even for fertility issues.
yes,
If we even just hone in on that specific area, we might find that somebody's their menstrual cycles are suddenly thrown off track because there's inadequate amount of nutrients coming in, just from unintentionally under eating, and
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
the menstruation and period itself can actually stop. So they're all little things that we will get to, and we'll have our specific weeks on certain topics, and
mm,
if it's of interest to people, just let us know, and as I say, just highlight those kind of topics that you really want to dig deeper into. But certainly this idea of the undernourished can certainly be seen across the board, across various different cultures, you know.
yeah. It's a worldwide issue for sure.
Yeah.
Um, we're living at a time where chronic degenerative disease is on the rise,
Yeah.
and things like infertility are on the rise,
Mhm.
and childhood conditions are on the rise.
Yeah.
In some sense, it's kind of alarming, and it's definitely happening. And I guess what we're bringing to the table is a kind of a unified, I won't say it's unique, but it's a unified sense of what's behind a lot of these problems. There's an underlying thing behind a lot of these problems that is associated with nutrition, some sort of disturbance in the nutrition sphere, let's call it. And um, what I think, on the one hand, I was going to say for an individual, it's a very individual thing. But actually, there's some common kind of ground that most people can follow the same advice. And then at some point, to kind of complete your journey, you're going to have to go on a personalized sort of journey to find out what suits you. So there's like foundational stuff that applies to most people. And then there's
Mhm.
very individual stuff that people have to tweak in their own journey. And I guess somewhere in that conversation, we'd like to help people move through their journey with by doing this show, and by what I'm hoping is people will have. I'm going to use the word because I think it did take some courage. People will have the courage to sort of, ring in, put their hand up, and say, "Yeah, I've got that problem. Give me some ideas, or point me in the right direction, or can you explain why this is not working, or can you explain where the this particular problem originates in the body, or whatever like that." So we that's the kind of stuff that we just love helping people with. It's not that we're going to be able to get into, full on therapy with people on a radio show. It's not, but we can certainly bring the insights
We'll
we get from,
explore things anyway.
can
Yeah, for
explore
sure.
things and
Yeah.
bring it to people. And I think, sometimes you just need a tip and a point in the right direction. Sometimes you need to be told, no, hang on a sec, this is actually quite serious. You need to go and get help. And it depends on what you need. So it's a very personal journey, but I think that's what we can bring
Yeah.
to the table. And as I said at the start, it what we do complements the the primary care of any condition that you have. It complements it. In fact, like one of the things that Eileen and myself do with all of our clients is we literally go out of our way to try and fit our therapy around the client's needs and around their existing medical therapy, so as not to disturb it, but to complement it. Because there are things you can do by accident with nutrition or supplements that affect the medicine you might be taking, and that's one of the things
Mhm.
we do with individuals. Now, on a show, we can talk about those things and we can give you a heads up on it, and so maybe
You have to do the due diligence,
you have
everything
to,
else that goes
yeah,
along with that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So
exactly,
if
yeah.
there's any
So
contraindications, that would be seen as the word would be there for contraindications. I'm sure people have heard of that before if they've read about any of the medications that they're on, if on medication, that it's important to be aware that sometimes, as you say, a supplement can interact with a
mm,
medication, but we generally, if we're working one-on-one with somebody, we have to do the research behind that to know, whether or not there's going to be an interaction, whether we need to parse something out across the day and keep them well away from each other in the timing, or just finding something else that's more suitable. So yeah, it's very detailed what we do generally, and as you say, we can only get into the broad strokes with a lot of people, but we'll make it fun and accessible, I suppose. Isn't that part and parcel of it, parcel of it? um that we don't want it to be something that stresses people out, because it's stressful enough to try and think, oh, what can I eat? Because especially, and when we come back to that idea that now there's so much noise, so much information out there, whether you're on Facebook or Instagram or any of the social media, so you're just getting eat meat, don't eat meat, blood sugar balance, and oh, it doesn't matter, and carbs this and no carbs, keto, blah blah. There's so
mm,
many questions people have, but there's no one answer. It's going to be very nuanced and very individualistic and personalized, as we said. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
tuning in to the body is the great way. Brendan, we have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
So I don't know about you, but I like the idea of being able to get in there and do a live show together so that people can really see, how it works, the interaction, all that kind of thing. And I'm looking forward to getting back down to Limerick, to have the
Yeah, brilliant.
excuse to break bread, as they say, even if it's not bread.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know, um, to break bread with friends, and using that part of community and everything else. So I'll be looking forward to even getting some recommendations for people from people about where to eat, where to go when I'm back down again visiting friends and things like that. Would love to
Yeah.
hear from, even if it's a local farmer. This is the kind of call out that we're putting there now. Do we have somebody who is, growing veg, as Brendan says, or has their own beef farm, whatever it happens to be? We just be really curious and interested to hear from the local suppliers and everything else, so that we can get people interacting with their local community, because this is the another concept we will cover as well. If you can get food that's closest to you and has hardly traveled, it's going to contain much more nutrients. I know I briefly touched on that when I mentioned food that may have flown across the world and losing
Mm,
nutrients and things like that. But ideally, for any of us, if we get food that's from the local environment, whether it's local honeys, local milks and butters and things like that, you are going to find that you're getting the benefit of that surrounding area, and you're going to, have a much more increased nutrient dense profile for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have something to say on the local grown and all that kind of.
Well, the the modern world has obviously brought, fantastic things to us. I mean, I love mangoes, I use frozen mangoes a lot, and I don't know where they come from, but like, it's not like it's not like we're going to have to give up, mangoes or coconuts or exotic fruits. But it's cool that they're available, but they're not the staple
Mhm.
of my diet, or should they be of your diet? The staple should be as local as possible. It's just because it's the natural design. There's so many reasons that makes sense, even down to the bacteria that comes from the local area that you grew up in and what's compatible with you.
Mhm.
It can get fairly detailed, but at a very simple level, the nearer the food is grown to you, the cheaper it's going to be to get it to you.
Oh,
Given the
absolutely. Yeah.
transport is a huge cost, and and I know this is maybe getting a little bit serious on the matter, even though we're trying to keep it lighthearted, but getting serious. Like there was when COVID happened, there was this sudden scare in people's minds that we were going to run out of food. Um, and to some extent, it kind of happened, but it didn't happen in a catastrophic way. But it did bring home the idea of food security. And food security is a very sort of technical term, but it basically means, can a local community, this is all about community radio, can a local community have enough faith or trust in its own local supply, its own local ecosystem of food to keep going if if I can use the phrase, if the shite hits the fan. And I don't know, the world seems to be fairly mad. It's like mud is hitting fans a lot. And at some point,
Stuff.
who
Stuff.
knows? I mean, even on a simple level, it's like the power supply. Like my house has lost power 8 times in the last 8 days. My
Oh,
my
wow.
whole region, and it's become a joke on our local WhatsApp, group. But stuff like that is happening. So um, what I'm saying is we're living in we are subject to the Chinese blessing. We're living in very interesting times, and at some level, at the core of it, food security and an understanding of food and the local production of food becomes very real. And I think COVID
Mhm.
gave us a kind of a taste of that, is what I'm saying. And so it's something that we have to start thinking about. And that's maybe, I know it's a geopolitical thing and it's a political thing, but it's something we really have to start thinking about that we didn't really have to think about that much until lately. And but there's a beautiful synergy between nutrition and local food. So it's actually like it's meant to be. It's not
Yeah.
it's not like we're trying to put two mad ideas together here. It's like they're the same idea. And whether you
From
grow your own
farm to
or
fork, quite literally.
farm
It
to
doesn't
fork,
need to.
literally,
It
exactly, yeah.
doesn't need to go from farm to plane to a
Yeah,
processing plant to.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to get food from around the world all the time at some point, some
Yeah.
food, but the basic stuff, the meat and potatoes, um, shouldn't be coming from far away because,
Yeah.
and there's a lot you could say about food production. Um,
It's fine about my green bananas. That's okay. That's perfectly okay.
oh, I was going to say to you about the green bananas originally that
Yeah.
this now is getting it. This is like a flavor of let's say nutrition therapy. It's like for you, green bananas have a higher prebiotic content, so they nourish your gut bacteria, and that's definitely true. For me, green bananas release histamine in my body, and I end up getting hives if I eat them. So there's a perfect
See?
example of
Yeah.
individual differences for the same food.
Nuanced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so like very ripe bananas suit me, but even a small bit of green, and I know I'm going to be scratching myself the day after. And I
Yeah.
love bananas, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I
there's a
suppose
perfect
just on
example.
a short note there for people as well, if we explain just about how the green, apart from the prebiotic fibers, I would be saying that if you're at one end where the banana is totally green and then out to the other end where it's gone to black. So all those shades in between, just as it ripens, just shows the sugar content of it as well, the glucose. That it rises with it. So the sweeter it gets, the more sugar it releases into the bloodstream.
Mm,
They're the kind of things we're going to get into, when we're talking about blood sugar and how we're fueling and getting our energy on a daily basis. So anyone who's tuning in at this lunchtime and they're finding that by 3 p.m. they're generally finding that little bit of a slump, we're going to be prompting you to have a look at what you've eaten throughout the day or haven't eaten. more to the point, or if you've been fueling on coffees and chocolate and stuff like that, that will be getting you to look back at what you've eaten, and see what effect that happens to have had on your blood sugar levels throughout the day. So they're all the things I can't wait to get into.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, we've mentioned it already. The blood sugar, is probably like the one of the core ideas that we end up talking to nearly every client about.
Yeah,
It's
that and sleep. Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
and sleep and stress management, I suppose.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually those, like sleep and stress management, the core thing that gets dysregulated when they're wrong is actually blood sugar itself.
Yeah.
So they're all connected. And
Vicious circle
mm,
in a
mm,
sense. Yeah. Yeah, for
yeah, so
sure.
it's super interesting stuff how it all
Yeah.
connects together. From green bananas
Brendan,
to stress.
green bananas is right. But just coming back to one little thing, just about your dad, for any of the listeners who don't actually know who you are or don't know who your dad was, will you let our
Mm.
listeners know that interesting fact about your dad, who he was to the people of Limerick?
Oh yeah. He was Brian O'Brien. Actually, his birthday is tomorrow. Um,
Oh, wow.
he
Okay.
um, he was basically, he's a Shannon Rugby sort of head, if you like, and he was big into rugby. He played rugby for Ireland 2 years before I was born, and so I kind of grew up with some sort of a celebrity dad, if you like, and he he so he yeah, I'm getting emotional. 1 second. Um, he Someone's trying to come in my door there as I was to do that. He finished his career years later, like a number of years before the dementia started to set in. In fact, there's a kind of a question in our mind if it was starting to set in as he was finishing up. But his last job was actually the manager of the Irish rugby team, and that was such a great time. His he there was a couple of years there where it was just like it was just so good to be part of the family. He went from being manager of the Munster rugby team. The first time they got to the European Cup final where they lost to Northampton. I'm going to get emotional about that if I start talking about that. We lost by a point to Northampton, but the
Oh,
following year,
wow.
he took the job for the Irish team, and went through, I don't know how many years of that, World Cups and all the tournaments. It was such a great time. But yes, he was well known in Shannon Rugby Club, and he's basically kind of from just literally down the road from
Legend.
where the radio station is. Not too far
An
from
absolute legend.
him. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So many will know the name. But like that, anyone that tunes in that absolutely loves the rugby and everything else, this isn't just about, I know we focused in a little bit on, senior health and things like that, or midlife. This applies to anyone across the board, whether it's a sports fanatic, a rugby fan, soccer, Gaelic, you name it. You're going to gain an awful lot by tuning into the show and by making these tweaks now. And send in the questions on protein and additional protein supplements, all those kind of things. They're the kind of things that we want to be answering, the real life questions that people have. Not
mm,
just we can come up with content, surely we can, but it's much easier to answer the real life questions that people have. So
yeah.
yeah, Brendan, it's been an interesting couple of hours, I have to say, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I suppose
Has it
we're
been?
wrapping up.
Has it been a couple of hours already? It has.
Almost, yeah. And I know I'm conscious of time as well, because with another show coming up after us and everything else, that we just want to leave it that people will, you know, just know that we'll be here on the next week. And
Yeah.
whether or not, I think for the week after this, for week two, I think we're on Zoom once again. But then after that, I'll be in studio with you. I'm going to
Okay.
make my way
So
down. I'll probably come down on the train or something like that for the day, and
brilliant,
jump in
brilliant.
on studio and see everybody and hang out. So
So
I'm
we're
looking
calling
forward
we're
to it.
we're, we're calling the show what?
What's for lunch with Eileen and Brendan? Or
What's
is
for
it
lunch?
Brendan and Eileen? Which way do you want to call it? Well, I don't
Eileen and
mind.
Brendan is good. What's for
Okay.
lunch is good. Yeah, it's
What's for lunch? Yeah.
because it's going to be at lunchtime, and basically it's about food.
Yes.
What's for breakfast? And then you know now that breakfast, lunch, and dinner don't make any difference. It's just to say
No,
it's just whatever meal you want. So,
exactly. Yeah.
mm,
So middle of the day, as I say. Well, it's from 12 till 2. each Monday. So that's the time slot that you'll find us in. So we're looking forward to people tuning in again on the second episode. But we'd love the feedback. We'd love to hear from people, any thoughts that you've had. Obviously we'd love to get 5-star ratings. There's no problem with that. We'll accept those hands down. But yeah.
Counterintuitively, I'd love also if people sent in stuff that they disagreed with. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
What do we
The
say that
controversy.
that irked us or that you disagreed with, and we can tease it out, because that's where you learn a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you've got to see all different perspectives, and that's what we're open to as well. And we're hoping that other people will be open to that, actual goal setting and everything else. So on that note, Brendan, I think we'll do a wrap up, and I'm going to say I'm looking forward to working alongside with you, whether it's on Zoom or in person. And a huge shout out to Andrea McMahon as well, and to Mike O'Connor for giving us the opportunity
Yeah,
to
brilliant.
jump onto the team there at Limerick City Community Radio. So yeah, wishing
Looking forward.
everybody a wonderful week.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Great, guys. Thank you, Eileen. So we'll wrap it up there. It's a pity we don't have
Okay,
a song to play out, isn't it? It'd be nice to have a nutrition song or
we'll
something, mini
find
song.
one.
We'll
We'll
find a
find
song.
something appropriate. Yeah,
We'll get a jingle.
absolutely. Okay,
Okay.
Brendan, look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, take care.
See you then, guys.